few years ago, we replaced our AC system, and the system that we went with is a partial heat pump, which means that the condenser has to be open and has to be able to have airflow during the wintertime as well as during the summertime, which leads us to an issue in Utah where we have issues with rain and snow and ice that have a tendency to get into things and really cause problems. And so to avoid that, I put together a quick cover using plywood and pine. Originally, I had some plastic that was stapled to it just to be able to give it some waterproofing. That barely lasted a year. And over the last couple of years, I decided that, yeah, it works. It's ugly. It's splitting apart. It's peeling. I needed to do something with it. I just wasn't quite sure what to do. So I decided to grab some Cyprus, which is supposed to be quite water resistant, resistant to mildew, mold, bugs, and see what I could be able to build for the cover for the AC condenser and still provide a little bit of protection from frisbees, balls, band kids who don't exactly pay attention all the time to what they're doing and where their toys are going. What I had worked in the past, it was able to protect the coils. We haven't had any of them get dented or destroyed, and so I wanted to make sure that that continued to be the case. Why this particular project ended up being so challenging, I don't know. I just had issue after issue. I rebuilt the thing twice. Made major mistakes on it twice with both builds, and ended up with an end result that will work, and we'll need some additional supports added to it later on, but I will do that at a later date just because I need to be able to pick up some more wood for it. But with that in mind, let me show you what I put together, and hopefully this will be able to give them an idea of what you can do as well.
The first step of this build is getting the wood mill down, running it across my jointing sled so that I can be able to get a nice clean edge and give you that nice reference point to work with. And running it through the jointer, or the planer rather, I just let him be able to get everything nice and smooth and milling everything down to 3/4 inch. And of course, with the wood run through the planer, I need to clean up the other edge so I can be able to get these glued together and put together the top for the cover. And with a little bit of glue, and a little bit of rubby, I can get these clamped up and start getting the top for the cover glued up and get this panel going. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, this is the second cover that I'm putting together. I'm not entirely sure what happened to the footage for the first one. I think I might have actually just discarded it because it just didn't work, and I was going to have to rebuild this anyway. So all of the footage that I recorded the first go around, I cannot find. I'm not sure what happened to it or where it is. So I don't get to show you cutting down the grate, trimming it, or any of that stuff that you'll see later in the video. And here's a good shot of the grain. Now I need to get the rabbet cut in this so that I can be able to attach this skirts for the tops that the legs are going to be attached to. And I'm still waiting on the dado insert for my saw. It was ordered about a month ago. It's back ordered, and I should have that hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I decided to go ahead and order one from Laguna, and that's part of the problem that's coming from the manufacturer. The aftermarket ones that I have found either just didn't quite fit, or I wasn't able to actually level them against the tabletop. And this is not sketchy at all, but it does get the job done. I do need to figure out if I can move the switch for this because I keep hitting the paddle and turn this off when I don't want to. I didn't film getting the rabbets cut on the skirt, but now I can get everything glued together and start getting this portion of it glued up and drying so that I can actually start working on the legs and getting the base for this cover put together. And how many clamps do you need for something like this? Usually more than what you expect. And with all the clamps put in place to keep everything nice and tight, I can actually start working on the legs, get this set aside, and let this dry. And now I'm just getting the dowel holes put in because I will be attaching legs with dowels. I wanted to originally use half laps or other types of joinery, but I discovered the Cyprus is extremely soft. It's almost like working with cedar, and I wasn't entirely sure that I could be able to get the dados or the half laps cut and still provide the stability that I needed. After making sure the corner sections for the legs were the right size, I cut the dados or the rabbets into them so I can be able to get a nice clean joint on these and give as much glue surface as possible on them. And a little bit of glue, a little bit of clamping. I can get these leg sections glued together and ready to install. Now it's time to start getting the legs attached. I'm using my workbench as a means to clamp these together, just so that I don't have to worry about an uneven surface and getting these legs misaligned and not lining up perfectly like I need them to on the edges. Adding the cross support, which is going to help keep this thing together, and also where I'm attaching the grate to the bottom so that I don't have a lot of vibration and sound from the metal grate that'll be against the condenser. The first one I put together, I failed to account for the additional thickness for the legs on the wood. And oddly enough, the top was the exact right size, but once you factored in the legs, which are quarters of an inch thick, it meant that the entire thing was now an inch and a half too narrow. And it wasn't going to fit in place without it being completely misshapen and the wood not lining up the way it's supposed to, and not actually sitting down on the base that the condenser is sitting on. With the legs and the bottom supports in, I can now verify that the grate is going to stick in properly, and then start getting the support for the back put in and make sure that it's going to line up with the portion of the grate for that. The pieces of wood that I'm using to block in the grate, I cut a rabbet in so that the grate would sit underneath it and help lock it in place. The rest of it, I'm using some machinist screws. They're going to help secure the grate to the wood and lock this thing down so it doesn't vibrate. now that the grate is put in place and tacked down, it's time to go ahead and get this thing stood up and realize this is backwards. The corner that you're looking at is also the same corner that has all of the refrigerant lines and everything else. So this is not going to work. I decided to go ahead and just cut the top off, separate the base from the top, flip it over, and just simply glue it back together and see if I can be able to get this to be stable and still provide the protection that I need. Now, hopefully you're able to get something out of this that is useful and gives you some ideas. If you feel I've earned it, please like and subscribe and share my videos so that I can be able to increase my viewer base through YouTube.
All right, here we go. I ended up cutting the top off, flipping the base upside down so it doesn't look as nice as it did, but this should provide the protection that I was looking for as far as protecting the coils from kids, grandkids, balls being kicked, stuff like that. And also keep the ice from building up on it during the wintertime, which is the whole reason for this. Because this is a partial heat pump, we cannot actually cover it during the winter. So we need to be able to have a cover on it so that ice doesn't get into the coils and cause all kinds of issues. But I think I managed to save it. And let's see how the Cyprus does through the winter and into next year. And hopefully this will do what I want it to do. The first one that I built that turned out to be too narrow will be just about perfect for scrap wood storage for our fire pit, barbecue, or whatever. So that's going to be converted into something completely different, and we'll still be able to use it. But hopefully this gives you an idea of something that you can do. And it's definitely not perfect, but I think it's close enough, and I think it will eventually work. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.